Sachs here. Welcome to the Chai Academy. Broadcasting from my office at the Chai Center in Dix Hills. So we are going through a course called Genesis. And it's a pretty comprehensive course. We went through creation, the 7 days, and that was chapter 1. And now we're going to have we started, I think, a couple days ago, chapter 2, and we're holding where Adam and Eve are going to be introduced and forged together and become a couple. So yesterday we were talking about, good afternoon, Eileen. Yesterday we were talking about that God witnessed man, Adam, this hermaphrodite, this Adam and Eve were together in one body, and God said it's no good for man to be alone. And we explained alone, right? Loneliness is one of the most terrible things, So you just have nobody to jive with, nobody to, he had dogs. Dog is a man's best friend. He's still alone. Also, it's no good for man to be alone. It's no good for man to be self-sufficient. Man could, and that where he had Eve attached to him, right? And he was attached to Eve. Didn't need anybody else. Didn't need anything. Right? Granted, they may be alone, but all the needs taken care of. So God said, because it's no good for mankind, human being, man or woman, right, to be alone, God said, I'm going to make Ezer Kenegdo. Now, these two words, Ezer Kenegdo, Bible scholars, Jewish and others, have tormented themselves over these words. Ezer traditionally translates as a help. Kenegdo, for him. Ezer could also mean power. Kenegdo, opposite him. Ezer could mean power. Kenegdo, to complement him. And either way, the issue is that many people, specifically scholars, they feel that it's very derogatory to women. So what is man? Man is just a help. What is a woman? A woman is a helpmate for a man. Right? A woman is a helpmate for a man, and that's it. That's the role of a woman. So we have to go to, and once again, the Bible scholars really debate this, and they get themselves sick over this. But truth be told, it's not like that at all, as we've discussed before. So there's so many different ways of looking at this, but at each commentary, what we'll discuss, which is life lessons, right, all agree that a woman is not inferior, right, at all to a man in any way, shape, or form. It's different, but it's not inferior. They're equal, doesn't mean same. Each one has its own things it brings to the table, its own talents, its own positives, its own values, its own characteristics that it brings to the table. And therefore they flesh out Ezer Kenegdo as something to that effect. So one commentary says that it means as a compliment to man. That man is just to have one body, it's not going to work. You don't want to go through life, right? You don't want to go through life without having a partner. If you think about it, it's you have a right hand and a left hand. They both can do very similar things. One is a little bit stronger, one is a little bit weaker. If you only had one hand, you couldn't wash it. You couldn't wash it. But you have a right hand and your left hand, the right hand washes the left and the left hand washes the right. If you just have one hand, so the idea is that it's a complement. I help you, you help me, right? And that's what marriage is. Marriage is a 100% from each couple. You complement one another. It's not one gives 50% and one gives 70%. That will lead, by the way, to bad feelings. That one is always trying and the other one's not trying as much. Or one does, puts in more effort into the marriage, into the family, into the home, and the other one does not. No. It's one complements the other. Ezer Kenegdo is a complement. The complement. Man would not be where he is today without his woman. Woman would not be where she is today without the man. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a mom and a dad in a perfect world, right? And by the way, Judaism believes very, very strongly in that you need the character of a mom and the character of a dad, and they're very different in order to raise a child. But sometimes there's got to be a divorce. Sometimes it has to be. A wife beater, get rid of him. It's better that way. So that's how one explains it, and therefore, it is not. It's a compliment, and it's not just I'm here to assist you. That's horrible. You're my assistant. No. I'm your co-director of this family, right? And we need each other to get through the day, to get through the week, decade, to rear our children, etc. Now, other commentaries explain it, and they're not. It's not mutually exclusive. We can learn from all this. So the first lesson is you got to be just as involved as your spouse, right? Just as involved. To rear these children. By the way, and that's true. That's true even if you don't live together, right? You still have to be available to these children. You still have to be available to each other about the children. So that's the first lesson of Ezer Kenegdo. The second lesson is a woman is a powerhouse. Ezer, I'm giving you a powerhouse. I'm giving you something that's unbelievable, right? We know in Kabbalistic lingo, there's something called Chachma, which means wisdom, which is the flash of intuition, an idea. And we know the next step is Bina, where we flesh out that idea and we bring it to practicality. Right? So one is an idea, but that could be fantasy land. You do a little Bina, you figure out how to implement your idea. Let's go to Florida. That's Chachma. Let's make the tickets and think where we're going to stay with it. That's Bina. Right? Now, in the relationship of man to woman, we're talking about having kids. A man's input is Chachma. It's a flash, right? We're talking about during the sexual union, right? It's an ejaculation. It's the woman that takes that and makes it into what it is. That's powerful. It's clear that men and women are different. It's very clear. A man does not have a womb. A man cannot physically have children. You need the Ezer, you need this powerhouse to have a child. Furthermore, once the child is born, right, who is the powerhouse of the family? Right? Who is it? It's the woman. It's the woman. The Talmud tells us that if you have a good man who's married to a bad woman, then the kids, we have to be concerned for them. On the other hand, If you have a bad man that's married to a good woman, that's a whole different scenario. Then we know that because of the woman's power, her influence, her nurturing, not that daddy's not nurturing, but it's different. So she is a powerhouse, and we have to recognize her as a powerhouse, and we have to say, wow. Right? God said, I'm giving you this powerful, powerful entity, and it's going to really be a tour de force in your home. That's how someone else explains it. Another person explains it is Ezer, a help. Kenegdo, opposite him, against him. Right? So the Elizabeth, I just saw what you wrote. I agree. So this idea is that when a couple is married, right, if you're the boss in a company, and you're a tough boss, or you're a big boss, or you're a decisive boss, right? You don't have people telling you no, right? If you're the owner of I don't know, Hyundai, or Lexus, or whatever, right? You're a forceful individual. You don't have people tell you no. Yeah, yes. Especially, by the way, in countries outside of the United States, right? A spouse is an Ezer Kenegdo. Right? You don't want to be married to a yes man. You want somebody who can sit down with you, man or woman, woman to man, by the way, and tell you the truth. Say, this is not right. This is not right. Honey, I know what you're saying. I know what you're going through, but don't do it. Right? Good friends can do that also. But here, Ezer Kenegdo, it's somebody that's an Ezer, helps one another. But Kenegdo means to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, what you're doing. If nobody else tells you you're wrong, me as your spouse, I'm going to I'm just reading Elizabeth's comment. Yeah, it's I hear you. It's wrong. You can't do this, honey, right? And if your spouse can't tell you, then is that even an Ezer? In other words, when your spouse is telling you you're wrong, that too is a help. Right? So Ezer Kenegdo, sometimes the spouse will be an Ezer. Sometimes she'll set you straight, or he'll set her straight. And but either way, the first word that we read is Ezer. The first thing is, I want you to know, says God, Ezer. Right? And then Kenegdo, sometimes it's is gonna disagree with you. Right? And that is the beauty of a marriage. It's a beauty of a person just if they're not married, or if they don't have a special person, if they don't have a special person in their life, they just go around and nobody sets them straight. They don't have somebody who knows them to the T, who's intimate with them, who knows every part of them, mentally, emotionally, physically as well, right? And can say, I know you like the back of my hand, and you're off, baby, you're off. So it's an incredible gift, right? An incredible gift, and it is overlooked, it's completely overlooked. People say that people mock marriage, or people not getting married, etc. This is the difference between marriage and living together. Marriage is such a commitment to one another that above all else, we're going to make this work. And it's not easy. tell you firsthand it's not easy, but you can tell me firsthand it's not easy. Not easy. But we give up a little bit of freedom in order to be a full human being, where we have an Isa connector. God tells us that he made Eve. Now, the most common interpretation of making Eve was that God took a rib. But what's interesting is it doesn't say rib. It just doesn't say it. It says he took Adam's side. Right? He took Adam's side. He took a chunk of Adam and made it into Chava. He made it into Eve. It wasn't just a puny rib. It was a large part of him. Right? This is, by the way, they say they took the right side. God took the right side. This is why, by the way, there's a custom, fascinating custom, is that when when under a chuppah, when man and woman, husband and wife are getting married, the woman stands on his right to commemorate that now the two sides are coming together. Right? By the way, now that we have this concept called DNA, we can understand that God took from his side, took a piece of him, and from the side, through DNA, built Chava. So it was a part of him. It was really a part of him, right? So therefore, when we say that when a couple gets married, they're actually fusing together, right? And they're becoming one. It's really becoming one again, right? Because we're taught that a husband and wife are one entity that was separated, and when they get married, they come together again. So he took his side. Adam, God gave him general anesthesia, and when he woke up, there was Chava. Right? Now, clearly, Chava is looked different. Chava acted different, and if anybody, and they teach us, I'm sure. I mean, you read stuff. I haven't sat in a classroom lately, but in a high school classroom, but they teach you, there's no difference between man and woman, and it's all the same, and the pronouns can be shared, etc., etc. So, from the Torah's perspective, it's really not. A woman is different than a man. A man is different than a woman. They're not inferior. One is not inferior to the other. One is not superior to the other. But they are different. They are different. And once again, they both bring their talents to the table. They both bring magic into the house. And you need both. So as soon as Adam saw Chava, he looked at her and he said one of the most romantic things. He goes, "You are me." He looked at her and said, "You are my flesh. You are my blood. You are my bones. You are me." Right? How romantic, how a Song of Songs is that? Right? It's not, we're very different. He goes, no. He looked her in the eyes and he said, "You're me. You're me." And that was the very first thing he said to her, which is he didn't focus on how different they looked, right? He didn't look at a man looks like this with a man's body and genitalia, and a woman looks like this with a woman's body and genitalia. Nothing like that. He just said, "You're me. You're me." And according to the Midrash, they were 20 years old. Adam was 20, Chava was 20, and they joined together and they were one. And then the Torah gives us a directive. Adam and Eve got married. Adam and Eve consummated their marriage, right, on that very day. And the Torah tells us, therefore, right, therefore, a man shall leave his father's house, his parents' house, and they shall cleave together and become one flesh. That is so deep. There's so much to discuss, but we're limited on time here. I mean, truth is we can go longer, but the man, right? You've been coddled by your mom. It's time for you to leave. It's time for you to forge your own path. It's time for you to take care of someone else. Right? And become one flesh. Once again, don't look at it differently. Don't look at it, when you get married, this is forever. You never get married saying, I'm going to get married. Oh yeah, but there's always a clause that I can get divorced. No, we're one. We're one. And that's how we're going into this marriage. We're going to one. And you know what, honey? You know what, honey? Whoever says it to whom, it says that I'm going to leave my parents' home. Right? If my parents tell me to do something, and you tell me to do something, I'm going to leave you're my priority. Right? I am not going to throw you ever to the wolves. I will stand up to my parents, and I will tell my parents, she is my spouse. He is my husband. I'm sticking with this. And I know you want this and this and this and this and this, but it doesn't work for us. And therefore leave. Your one's obligation is to one's spouse, even though you have a commandment to honor your parents. The Torah is giving you very clear direction that you always have to honor your parents, you always have to love your parents, you always have to do your parents, etc., etc. A normal set of parents anyway. But if there's ever a conflict, you gotta go with the spouse. Because you got to leave this is your, you still honor them, and you explain to them, I'm married now. I have no choice. God gave me, the same God that told me honor my parents, told me I have to leave my parents' home, and I have to stick it out with my spouse, and therefore, mom and dad, please respect me. Please recognize my predicament, and stop creating rifts between me and my spouse. Parents, in-laws, as we know, in-laws, mother-in-law, father-in-law, we know all the jokes, right? Can be very divisive in a marriage. Can really, but the Torah tells us that you just got to ignore them. You just got to put them aside, and you have to focus on loving your spouse and being there for your spouse. Man, Torah tells us, called her Isha. Called her Isha. Isha means woman. He says, Kime Ish, because she came from the man. So it's interesting that both have the same letters. Both have two common letters, Aleph and a Shin, Aleph and a Shin. A man is Aleph Yud Shin. A woman is Aleph Shin Hey. They both have Aleph Shin. What is Aleph Shin? Fire. Passion. They both have passion. A man has passion. A woman has passion. The man has a Yud in there, which is God's name. A woman has the Hey and not the Yud, which is also God's name. So the passion that they have for one another is godly. The love that they have for one another is godly. Maimonides says, by the way, Maimonides says one of the holiest, purest times of a person's life is when they're making love to their spouse. Right? The passion between a husband and wife is the holiest and purest of times. The passion between a husband and someone else's wife is the most decadent thing you can do, punishable by death. But the holiest time, so to have passion and it's directed properly to your spouse, that's godly. That's godly. But if you notice, the man has the Yud and the woman has the Hey. Yud, once again, stands for, it's a small letter. It stands for the flash of intuition. The hey is where you take that thought and you develop it. It says that a woman has more of the ability to flesh out, process something more than the man. A man, for the most part, and we see this, a man is the fixer. Something happens wrong, I want to fix it. A woman is, no, don't fix it. We have to think about this. What is the best way to do this? Right? And that's because one has the yud, just quick, and the other one has the hey, that needs to process and ponder and flesh it out and make sure it's right. In addition to giving his wife a name, Isha, he gave Isha his wife, and he gave her Chava. He actually called her the mother of all life, right? But he called her Isha. He also gave all the animals a name. So all the animals came to him, and he gave them a name. Now we're taught that when Adam gave the animals, when Adam gave these animals, when he gave them a name, he was basically giving them an identity. And it's like that with us. When we are given a name, whether at birth, or whether at the bris, or whether at Torah reading, or whatever, our name, it says there's not much prophecy happening nowadays, right? Prophecy doesn't really happen. However, when parents choose a name, it is prophecy. So why? Because the name they chose is the identity of the child. So my name is Yaakov, that's my energy. Your name may be Sarah, that's your energy, right? Your name may be Shoshana, that's your energy. Eliezer, that's your energy, etc., etc. Esther, that's your energy. Right? Particularly a Hebrew name, but it could be an English name also. So now, when he gave the animals a name, that's their energy. So when he said, elephant, your name is going to be Peel, that's the Hebrew for elephant. These letters, Pe Yud Lamed, became the elephant's energy. Kuf for a monkey, that's its energy. Aryeh for a lion, that's its energy. And so on and so on and so forth. And he chose the name for his Isha. He told her, you're my Isha. He called her Chava. And he says, why I'm calling you Chava? He says, because Chava means life. And you are the mother of life. That was the second thing he told her. So the first thing he says, you're mine, we are one. You're my flesh, you're my blood, you're my bones. The second thing he told her, he says, you're the mother of all life. That's the way to speak to a spouse. Right? That is the way to have a relationship. The Torah tells us that they were naked. They had no clothes. And the Torah tells us right after that, V'lo yispashashu. They weren't embarrassed. They walked around naked, right? Naked and afraid, I'm not sure. Naked, not afraid. They walked around naked, but V'lo yispashashu, they weren't embarrassed because, first of all, the sin, which we'll talk about the next time we meet, the sin didn't happen yet. And because they didn't internalize evil, it was something that, once again, they didn't crave evil, it was something exterior, external from them, is that therefore their genitalia was like their hands. You brush your teeth, you go pee. It wasn't anything. There was no, even though yes, they made love and they experienced the sex and sexual intercourse, etc. But it was the way it should be. The way it should be is that this is holy, this is the right thing to do, and they didn't feel they had to cover up for themselves or for the animals or for God, which is very different the way we are now, right? That we cover up, we're very careful, unless we're at the beach. We're not as careful, but that's a designated spot. But you know what? I always remark that in the beach, so you're there in your bathing suit, etc. But if someone came into your house and you were in a bathing suit, you'd be screaming dignity, dignity, privacy, privacy. But at the beach, you can wear the same thing. Um, so I always find that funny. But the Velois Bashasha, they were not embarrassed about it. Yes, they were alone. They were alone. It was just them, but they thought nothing of it. They thought absolutely nothing of it, because they didn't internalize the idea that sex could be used for prostitution. That sex is a way to get to somebody, positive or negative. Sex is a way to hurt somebody. Sex is a way to get your jollies without caring about the next person. Sex is you could be a pedophilia and all these other sexual perversions that there is, right? And incest and things like that. It didn't even enter their mind. There's no. It was so way above their head because they hadn't internalized evil. So therefore, strutting down the street in their birthday suit, which they kind of didn't really have a birthday, was just as you would strut down the street wearing your down coat in freezing cold weather. It's exactly the same thing. When we meet again, we will talk a little bit more about Adam and Chava, that dynamic, and then we'll get into what the Christians call the original sin, and we'll discuss it, and we'll flesh it out a few different ways. Does anybody have any questions? Because now's the time. If you do, you can ask here, or you can go to rabbi@thechaicenter.com. If you wish to see a recording of this or any other class, you can go to thechaicenter.com/academy. And I noticed a few people shared yesterday the class. If you share it, that's great. Appreciate it. It only can help spiritually, physically, and all other ways. God bless. Love your spouse. Love him. Right? Even if you're going through a bad time, love him. Love him. Tell him you love him. And even if it's a rocky marriage, you still, you're one and the same.